Coming up on Mental Health Marty, we want to talk about what is going on with our educational system as it pertains to mental health with our youth. Stay tuned. What's up, everybody? Yes, it's me. It's Martina Sellers, your host, your mental health hygienist for Mental Health Marty, coming to you live and in living color in Southern California, where the sun is always, y'all know what I say, the sun is always shining and the heat index is always rising. Y'all pray for us. We about hitting the triple digits again, and we are burning up, but we not on fire. Our heart goes out to those who are going to be experiencing all of that in the Florida coast with this hurricane and everything that's going on. We pray for your safety in the midst of all of that, because that too can wear on your mental health. And we hope that you are doing well and stay protected, definitely in everything that you're doing. So yes, as we do, let us know you're listening. Let us know where you're listening from. Shout out to everybody. Listen, we want you to come on in the room and invite everyone in, because we have a show for you tonight. I feel like I've been missing you guys. I was on last week, but I don't know what's up. I feel like I haven't been on for a while. How you doing? Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know what's going on in your life. Miss you. What's up, everybody? What's up? As Martin would say, but I'm Marty Sellers. Yes, but let me tell you what Mental Health Marty is all about. Yes, so glad that you asked. Mental Health Marty is a psychoeducational, and we are here to bring education and awareness about mental health and to stop the stinking thinking about the stigma of mental health and mental health challenges versus disorders. Because you go through a mental health challenge does not mean that you have a mental health disorder, because we all go through stress. We all have anxiety. We all experience depression at some point in time. This show is intended for psychoeducational and support services only. Let me say that again. This show is intended for psychoeducational and support services only. We are not a substitute for you seeing your therapist, your psychologist, your psychiatrist, your doctor, your mentor, your life coach, your pastor, your preach, your bestie, any of those things. But we are to be a supplement to your treatment plan. So if you're experiencing any type of psychiatric emergency or feeling like you need help, please go to your nearest urgent care or dial 911 or the new mental health hotline at 988. We are so glad that we are making you aware of that, and we want to make sure that you are following all the proper procedures and protocol. Why? Because we don't want you to continue to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame. But you know what I say, y'all, we want you to speak up, speak out, and live in order that you might enjoy your life. That's what I'm talking about. Now, how do you engage in the conversation today? I'm glad you asked that. Now, if you are on Facebook, jump off and go subscribe to Mental Health Marty YouTube, because that's where all of the questions, answers, and all of these things are filtered in, and we can see your response to that, because YouTube just is a better format for us. So we want everyone to start switching and coming over to YouTube, the Mental Health Marty YouTube channel. I need 50 new subscribers this month. Well, this month is over. For October, I need 50 new subscribers. So listen, call your cat, dog, everybody. So you subscribe, hit that thumbs up, like button, and that will let you know what's going on. Yes, that's how you do it. So if you are want to see and want us to respond to a question or comment, you have to put it in the YouTube Mental Health Marty YouTube channel so that we see your question and everything there. But listen, y'all, how's everything going? Listen, I thought of this topic, fighting fentanyl and just being fed up. What is going on with our educational system and our youth these days? Are they learning? Is the educational system antiquated? Is it outdated? Do we need to look at other means for educating our youth? What happens when we become more self-reliant and take responsibility for our own education for our youth, so that we are helping foster a healthy mental health environment and also helping to foster better public health safety as it pertains to education and our young people? I am a huge proponent of education, but I'm a huge proponent of education being done right. Why do I say that? Because we have to be careful and make sure that you have the proper support system for your young people. We know that traditionally around grade 3 and 4, that's when our Black and brown young men are oftentimes pushed to the back of the room. They're labeled, they're misdiagnosed, they're over-medicated, that because we don't have enough psychologists, therapists, and psychiatrists who understand the challenges of our young people. Why do I say that? Because we had someone call out a psych report and a psychiatric examination on one of our young people because they were hitting their head like this. And so we asked the question, wait a minute, what was her hairstyle? They said, well, she had braids. We had to educate the psychologist. Hitting your head like this means for us, their head was itching. They weren't beating themselves like they was crazy. Listen, they was trying to stop the itching. So we have to make sure. I know it seems crazy to us, but it's the truth. That's why cultural competency is so imperative, not only in this field, but also understanding in the educational system. Our children learn differently. Know your kids' behaviors, know your child's strengths, their weaknesses, what they're good at. Are they better math persons? Are they better at reading and history? And are they presenters? Are they more insulated? Lord have mercy. Y'all pray for me. Are they more introverts versus extroverts? Those are the type of behaviors we need to know about our children. And so I'm so excited. Let's bring on our first guest, y'all. I'm so excited to have this brother. He's been on the Mental Health Marty show more than once, and he is a returning guest on here. I'm so glad to have him with us. None other than all the way from LA in the Southern California region in Eastvale, teaching at Valley College, none other than the great man himself, Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown, how are you?
What an introduction. I love that. I need you to walk in front of me all the time.
Anytime.
Hype me up just like
all
that.
Hail to Dr. Brown. Yes, man. Yes. Tanya, so good to see you. Thank you for always being a faithful follower of the Mental Health Marty show. Dr. Brown, and for those who don't know, Dr. Brown has this amazing book out, and you have your second edition of this book out, Joker to King. Do you have that in front of you? I know you do. That's what I'm talking about. Dr. Brown, Joker to King. And I'm so excited about this young man, this brother here. We've been rocking, knowing each other for about 5 years now, Dr. Brown, and I appreciate you And Dr. Brown is the editor of my upcoming. Y'all have been promising this book, but he has been challenging me on a couple other areas. So it is going to be coming out before January. Listen, but Dr. Brown, talk to us. Tell the people who you are, what you do, and your whole passion, because you have this passion about mental health and the educational system and why that is so important for you.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I've been an educator all my life. Right after I graduated from school, I went straight into teaching. And so that was, man, my goodness. I graduated in 94, started teaching right away. And I have worked in elementary, middle school, high school, college, private school, public schools, even continuation high school environments for students on probation. All different types of students, all different types of environments. Education is my passion. And
love it.
Outside of teaching, I'm also a writer and a certified men's development coach. I want to make sure that men learn what healthy masculinity looks like.
Right? That's good. That's good.
Like, because we've had decades and decades of things that are toxic, things that are not good for us, and we need to grow as men. We need to evolve and learn what healthy masculinity looks like.
I love that, because since we're talking about healthy masculinity, that's been kind of really the premise of your book, Joker to King. Can you explain to those who may not have purchased the book yet, and y'all, you need to go purchase this book. It is a wonderful, since we're talking about going into the holiday season, it's a great holiday purchase. Jeff, what's going on, my brother? How you feeling? Thank you for always tuning in from DC. Yes, but it's a great book to have, and I believe every Black man in this country needs to have this book. Talk to us about the premise of this book and why you wrote it, because I love the backstory of why you wrote this book.
Right. Well, the backstory of the book has to do with my youngest brother, DJ. When he was 21 years old, he dropped out of 2 different colleges. He lost his job. He was struggling. He was about to get kicked out of his own living situation. And he asked me for help. He asked if I could teach him how to be a man, because he felt his life was spiraling out of control. And nobody ever asked me that question before. Teach me how to be a man. And so I took it like a challenge. I write curriculum for math. I'm also an English professor. Can I write step-by-step lessons on how to be a healthy man? And so that's where this book came from, And also, I want to catch you up also on how he's doing, because he's now in a master's program. He is in a master's program, getting his master's in data science. He's working for
I love it.
Not only the Cal State system, but he's working for the Cal State Chancellor's office, doing the technology for all of the future teacher ed programs in all of the Cal States. And so this guy has turned his life around, and a lot of it has to do with the changes to the mindset, right?
Right. And that's so important, because it is what we call about changing the neuroplasticity of our mind. In other words, creating new thought waves and thought patterns. And I always say it this way, changing our stinking thinking and making sure that we're positive, because, Dr. Brown, because talk to me about real quick, and we're going to bring on Dr. Boyd next, because he's the two of you brilliant minds and all this. But talk to us about what you're seeing, because when we're looking at Black educators, Black male educators, we call the 2%ers, because they only represent 2%, if I'm correct, of the field of education.
That is correct.
So seeing a Black male teach, one, is a wonderful treat for we as Black men, because we can finally identify and have that. But let's talk about the great what you are seeing in the classrooms from your experience from you since you went from elementary all up to collegiate level. What are some of the
Right.
common challenges that you see that I'm going to start here that for our black peers, our black students face, specifically our black male students?
Well, I think you mentioned some of it earlier at the very beginning. A lot of times,
Hmm.
there's a lack of cultural competency in the classroom. You know,
Yes, yes,
you mentioned how black men are 2% of the K-12 teachers in this country.
yes,
The
yes,
the vast majority of teachers in our country are white women, and the
yes,
younger you go in the grade level, you see more and more. This is the reason why kindergarten teachers are 99% women, right?
yes.
The lower you go in the grade level, the more women you see, and the
Hmm.
men are not very well represented in the teaching force, you
Hmm.
know. And
Hmm.
a lot of times our students need to see people who look like them in terms of
Yes.
male teachers, black male
Yes.
teachers, people who
Yes.
live in the places where they teach. We need to
Yes.
have, that old saying, the students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
How much you care.
Right?
Yes. Exactly.
There's
It's
a
so true.
and there is a lot of that emotional connection that needs to happen with a lot of students before learning can even take place.
Especially when at
I,
that those developmental years, that's so
exactly,
imperative
exactly,
because we already
exactly.
know that we're talking about, if we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs of feeling that safety and security and making sure those psychological and those biological, those basic needs are met, and that
That's
comes
exactly
from not only the family but also the teachers as well.
right, right. And I'm glad you brought that up because at the bottom of that hierarchy, you have the basic
Yes,
physiological needs. Are the
physiological needs.
kids
Yes.
are the kids actually eating in the morning? Are they sleeping?
Mm-hmm.
Are they physically
Mm-hmm.
healthy? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Mm-hmm.
once that happens, then you can talk about safety and security, right? And
Yes,
anytime any of that stuff breaks down, you have more of a likelihood of these students not succeeding academically, right?
exactly, exactly, and
Right.
that's so imperative that we talk about those things and make sure that those basic needs are met. You can't, as my 6-year-old comes in, hi Tony. Uh,
Look at that smile.
right, 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 right. As we talk about it, but even for her, I make sure that her teachers know what her love language is, even as a child. She's very touchy feely. She those basic needs being met. As she keeps creeping around all my stuff. And, right, right, right. I have no privacy or anything, but I have to make sure that her needs. So I make it a point to make sure,
Right.
one, that they know that this little girl has a father who will fight for her. Now, if I don't take too much, I'll be like, listen, I didn't got old, so my tolerance is very. Y'all pray my strength in these last and evil COVID filled streets. Go ahead, you were gonna say.
No, no. I was gonna say here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize also because I've been in the college environment now for 16
Right,
years.
right.
The thing that a lot of people are missing is that these needs still exist for our young adults. We assume that our college
Yes.
students are getting enough sleep, getting enough to eat, are
Right.
safe,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
are emotionally secure. We
Yes.
assume that because they're 18, that they don't have to
That
worry
right.
about that the instructors don't have to worry about those
But there's so
basic
many
needs,
things,
but
especially on the
they do,
yes. When we talk about
right?
finances and all these other things, we won't even go into the whole food desert and all that. You know what? this is a good time to bring Dr. Boyd on. Dr. Donte Boyd from the OSU, Ohio State University, in the Department of Public Health. Let's welcome him back on to the show. Dr. Boyd, what's going on, my brother?
How you
Hi.
doing? Thank you for having me.
Listen, man, I always love when you're on here, man, and it's been too long. So my apologies because I should have had you on here a lot sooner. But, man, it's so good to see you. How's Ohio treating you?
Ohio's good. We're actually dealing with the same thing um, here at Ohio State in terms of student homelessness,
Right.
this idea of what education looks like in the future. Um,
Yes.
And just where you all are, I think the Los Angeles Times just reported the University of California has the largest homeless college student population.
Wow.
In
Wow.
terms of which impacts your mental health, right? If you're not eating, you're
It
homeless.
does.
Yeah.
And can I say this because a graduate of UC Berkeley, go Bears. I can remember my second year. Now it was my fault I did not have housing my second year. I caught myself in love. That's a whole nother story. Mom, don't you even put anything in the comments because you know the story. And so I said, listen, I had a plan. I said, I'm just gonna fly up there, knowing I didn't have housing, and say, Mom, I don't have housing. Please fly me back home. And she said, you're officially homeless. You better work it out. So she would not let me come home. And I slept on, listen, I was jumping around, sleeping on dorm room floors for about 2 weeks. I made it, I got emergency student loan so I can get some emergency funding and everything. But shout out to Miss Ophelia. I don't even know if Miss Ophelia is still alive, but I thank God for that woman who was a lunch lady at UC Berkeley who made sure I had 3 meals a day while I was homeless. And she took care. She would sneak me into the cafeteria and made sure I ate. And it had not been folks looking out for me because she said, listen, I have to make sure you graduate, and I'm your mama when your mama ain't around. And so when we have a community like that, I see. Mom, stop putting comments up there. You're not allowed to comment. I told you, don't play. Stop putting comments. Daryl, stop. Don't put any more of her comments up there. In fact, delete her from the show. But but it is something to. How can you focus on getting your degree when you're not sure where you're going to sleep day to day, when you're not sure where you're going to get a meal, all these other things, you can't buy books and everything. So talk to us, even Dr. Boyd, about what that looks like with your students, and even this public health crises a lot of times that we have that we don't address just because they are in. Mom, what are you doing up here? Go down. Get out of the studio.
You took her off the comments section. She gotta find her way to make her voice heard.
Right.
Get out of here. Thank you. Dr. Boyd, turn the camera to Dr. Boyd so I can get my mama out the studio. But talk to us about that, Dr. Boyd.
So first, there's several things here. I think you have kids who don't want to be in college, first and foremost, who are told that college is their only way out. And then when they get to college, trying to figure out how they're going to pay for it, right? That's stressful. That creates stress. And then you're dealing with racism and discrimination on campus. You're away from home. That causes mental health problems.
Right.
And then in the case, if you're homeless or trying to find housing, most schools now are very generous with financial aid, and they allow these students to receive free housing. But those who are in the middle class, which is the population we don't talk about too often, when tuition goes up, they have to pay for it out of pocket, right? So that impacts housing, whether you're going to have somewhere to live, food. Some colleges have food pantries for
Yes.
low income students on campus
Yes.
because they understand this idea of students being homeless and hungry, because you can't apply, and depending on the state, college students are not considered poor, right? So that means they
Which
can
is
access
sad.
social services, right? So in
Yes.
Los Angeles County, you're a college student and you can get food stamps. But in Missouri and St. Louis, if you were a student and you worked at least 10 hours a week, you can get food stamps as a student. So certain places do not consider college students
Wow.
homeless, and they're not calculated in that particular population. Um, and so that makes it hard for you to survive.
Yeah.
And that's a transitional time too, that a lot of our kids are learning how to quote unquote adult during that time. I know that was a great struggle for me and some of my closest friends. I'm going Dr. Brown, I'm going to have you address that too. Some of my closest friends are those that I adulted with through college. You know, there were many Fridays after we had gospel choir rehearsal. Listen, I'm like, I got a box of Jiffy. What you got? And that was really, especially once those of us who got our own apartments, we didn't have a meal plan anymore. We were scraping to survive. Listen, pork and beans and biscuit went a long way. Talk
Mhm.
to us, Dr. Brown, what you were going to say.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. That those transitional times, those
Yes,
liminal, what they
yes,
call liminal spaces, right?
yes, yes,
LIMINAL, right? Like
yes,
middle school to high school to college, college to
right,
workforce. You know, all
yes,
those transitional times are when you see the most stress, the most anxiety, the most depression, the most
mm-hmm,
feeling of
mm-hmm,
being overwhelmed, all that
yes,
anxiety. And the reason is because there's so much newness. There's so much
yes,
newness to navigate, and especially going into college because you
yes,
have new living situation, a
mm-hmm,
new academic environment. You know,
mm-hmm,
classes that were 40 weeks in high school are now 12 or 16 weeks. You know, and you
yes,
have a lot of social interactions that are different, relationships that are different, finance, all of this while you're still trying to learn how to be an adult. And then you throw on top of that drugs, alcohol, party, risky behavior, right? And you
sex,
have
all of that.
exactly, and then you have a incredible mix of factors that lead to anxiety, depression,
Yes,
uh, the
yes,
feeling like I'm not living up, that imposter syndrome, like I don't belong here.
yes.
You know, it's a very,
Well, we weren't even
very
talking about the
different.
racism that we were talking about earlier that Dante was talking about too, about
Right.
racism that exists, you know, whether it's subliminal or not. And then can we even address that for most young men? That is also
Mm.
the time for those that bipolar can really kick in and those psychotic episodes, because we also know that men develop emotionally and mentally a lot later than women, and so we can see also the mental health demise, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, or diminishing of their mental health capacities when some of those traits in the family can kick in. We don't know sometimes what triggers it, but we see it sometimes between the 18 and 21, 22 time frame as well. And so
Right,
how
right.
do we even deal with some of that? Go ahead, Dr. Boyd, you were saying.
So I think that emerging adults, right? You have young people not just competing with all these life factors, but what society
Right.
wants them to be, right? And
That's good.
so what do you think about like when a black kid, a black man is graduating from 18, where most people probably didn't even think he would graduate from high school, go into these
Right.
huge universities, right? Because most people don't discover liberal arts colleges, where
Yes.
there are particular, they're smaller, right? And you say navigate this big bureaucracy, right?
Yes.
And and you navigate in a way where it's more like the world is looking at me. They have these biases, right? Because a lot of it, sometimes you don't know if it's external or internal, but does it matter if it's internal racism, right?
Right.
Versus external, because the world has already shaped your mind. So you're competing with who can I trust, right? I'm still
Mm-hmm.
developing as a emerging adult. I'm still trying to figure out my way. But then when you look at your counterparts, when you think of Asian Americans, and they've been
Yes.
groomed, right?
Yes.
They're one the good stereotypes, right? And they've been
Yes.
groomed to be a doctor forever. It also makes
Right.
it make you deal with anxiety. Like, I have no idea what I want to do. Um,
Right.
People already
Or the
don't
pressure
expect
that
me to
we are
be
supposed to know
here.
what we're supposed to do. Yeah.
Right. I remember when I was in started college, we did a summer program, and the director of the program said, "Look to your left and look to your right." And she
Yeah.
said, "Half the people that's standing next to you won't be here next year."
Won't be here.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so it's
Did you go
because
through Summer
life
Bridge too?
I did go through Summer Bridge.
Right,
Uh,
right. I went through Summer Bridge too, but it's the truth because when we're looking at the attrition rate and all that through which black students go through, it's unfortunately the sad truth that they look to your right, look to your left. One of you, if not both of you, will not be here when it comes to a year from now, and you see it happen. And when we're talking about UC Berkeley, we had when I was there in the dark ages of 85 to 90. Um, we had a population of 80,000 students. That included undergrad, graduate work, and doctoral and the law school. But let's look at OSU, the Ohio State University. How many students are there at the Ohio State University?
just on our main campus is 50,000.
Right,
Wow.
just on the
Like
main
that.
campus.
No, none of the University of California has a campus of 45 or bigger. So we have 50,000 students on our main campus, and that's undergrads.
Right. Wow. That's just right. That's just
Um,
undergrad. That's huge.
that's just
That's a
It's
undergrads.
its
city.
own
How
city.
do you navigate? It is. It is. It's a small. It's bigger than the population of some of the smaller cities in Ohio,
Right.
and
And
even
so they created
go ahead.
programs like there's a Black Male Institute
Hmm.
on how to help Black men through college. They follow them for 4 years. But even that, in some ways, is problematic, right? I think
Right.
these ideas of what is a man, what does that mean? How do I even
Mm.
model what is a man when 62% of Black children do live in single mother-headed households? Doesn't mean he's there, but we
Wow.
also know that is a traumatic loss. Like, have you ever asked someone about
That's
the
good.
absentee of their father and how it impacts their mental health? Right? Like we
Hmm.
we talk about it in terms of like women and like she's looking for daddy or whatever. She got daddy issues,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
a
But
lot of men
go
have
ahead.
daddy issues, right?
We do because we need that that male role model in our life too. However, recent studies have been showing that in our households where the biological father is not living in it, that we black men are the most involved. I'm so glad we finally
Oh
have those
yeah,
statistics,
most definitely.
but they're not coming out. And we don't know that we are the most involved with our children because we want to try and bridge that gap to make sure of that. And it's very
Well,
imperative. Go ahead.
like it's a great thing, right? Like, but I think when you think about, they're not just biological fathers, right? You
Right.
have stepfathers who contribute to that. You have goddads,
Yes.
grandpas,
Yes.
right, that
Yes.
also contribute to making it up. It goes the saying of it takes a real man to raise a child, right? Like,
Yes.
because you do have a lot of absentee fathers, and that's a huge problem. But it's more of a ace now. It's like an unofficial ace. It's a traumatic loss that
Mm.
impacts us. If you never come to peace with that, just like in my class, we were talking about marriage. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
young men, both black and Latino, feel like, why would I get married if I never seen it done? Why would I do certain
Mm-hmm.
things if I never had nobody walk me through these things? So I mean, you have the idea of chosen family, right? But does that
Right.
replace your actual family? And
But
what
it's
is the
hard
mental
to
harm?
yeah. No, I
Well,
understand what you're saying, but it's hard to
that father wound is real. It's a
yes.
very real, pernicious uh, factor in a lot of people's lives, both men and women. You know.
Yes. So can we go here, Dr. Brown? Because I want to talk about this too. Well, not only we're talking about the role of oftentimes that not being sometimes modeled, oftentimes being modeled in our lives, but can we also talk about the stereotype that sometimes come because you are an educated black male or that you chose education, maybe in conjunction or in lieu of sports, that you are now an Oreo, you're a sellout, you're an Uncle Tom, these type of negative stereotypes that often comes within our community because we are now shaming that you chose to get an education or and I think that happens in the earlier years. Later on we realize that it is extremely valuable, but and can we talk about that? And also when you're a first generation that's going on to college as well, the added pressure and the psychological overwhelmness and anxiety that can come along with that too, that you may
Mm.
have seen in your classrooms.
There's a that's a deep question, especially with black men, because our media tells
Yes,
us that our value is wrapped up in our bodies and what we can do physically, right?
that's right.
Um, in terms of sexuality, in terms of work, in terms of athletics and sports, in terms of fighting. A lot of the media messaging
Yes,
out there is that our value is in what we do with our bodies. And when we
right.
do something that goes against that, like find value in our brains, in our minds, in our heart, in our
Mm-hmm.
compassion,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's it's looked at as abnormal. It's looked at even by our own
Mm-hmm.
peers, right? It's looked at
Right.
as doing something against the girl. What are you trying to be? What are you trying to be? What are you trying to be?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so all of those people who do, like you say, they get into education, they go into college, they try to use education as a tool to improve themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're also battling with all of those other messages that said this is not for you,
Yes.
right?
Yes. 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 And that can be very trying and very a heavy load to carry. So what advice do we give to? And I'm going to do it two part. And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Boyd, to parents and also to students who are dealing with those traumas or those pressures. So this is a way. This is why we have to change our narrative. Jeff, I totally agree with you, man. We have to change the narrative in what we deal and how we deal with education and how we value it. But Dr. Boyd, talk to us even from a public health, Black public health. I don't know if there's a public health crisis, but even our mindset of how we deal with all of that.
So we know education has been painted in this country as the way out of poverty, right? And
Right, right.
but with education can also come social capital, and having an
Mm,
education social capital is a way out of poverty. But did you know 96% of poor Americans, only 4% of them actually make it out of poverty, right? Um,
wait, say that
so when
statistic one more time because you flew it past us. I gotta digest that. I gotta process it. Don't throw it out there, Dr. Boyd, and then expect me to catch it the first time. Say that one more time for me.
So 96% of poor Americans, only
Uh-huh.
4% of them will actually make it out of poverty. So when you look at yourself, if you grew up poor and you're out of that's a very small percentage. And
It
that's not even
is.
stratified by race,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
that's just 4% of That's less than what the population 300 some million. So that's a very small percentage.
It's a small
So
percentage of it. Yes.
when you think about that and you think of parenting and mental health, it starts from a young age, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
socialization has to start. And one of the things I think has to happen is parents have to start, especially Black parents, socializing their kids around education and mental health,
Mm-hmm.
just like they do
Mm-hmm.
racism and race and dealing
Mm-hmm.
with the police, right? It's time to
Mm-hmm.
expand that conversation beyond
That's good.
police brutality, right? Don't
Yes.
we can't just focus here. We have to talk about mental health, right? They say Black people age the best, but they're dying faster inside than anybody else. That's a mental thing, right?
It
The
is because
damage
Dr.
that
Boyd, go ahead. Go ahead. The damage. Go ahead. Finish that statement for me.
so the damage that is happening is like mental health is causing that, right? Stress to your body will
Yes.
kill you faster than anything.
Yes, because when we look at the average lifeline of the black man compared to our white and counterpart, the average black man has 10 years less than his white counterpart. That all because of our mental health, stress, and physiological. Because we all know, I say it this way: stress and anxiety and depression enters the body. However, if we don't somehow release it, we know it causes strokes, and 80% of strokes are preventable. We know it, heart pressure, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, all these other things, because we are not taking care of our mental and physical health. And it can be preventable, and it is preventable, but we have to do a better job. We have to have these conversations. I want all of my years and some to let alone, but to know that I'm cutting 10 years off of my life because I'm not taking care of this and I'm not taking care of this. And it's all preventable. Dr. Brown, talk to us some more about that, even from the educational point.
Oh yeah. Well, I got to give a lot of credit to my wife, the amazing Dr. Selena Gray, who
Yes, come
incorporates a
on,
lot of that.
newlywed.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm keep it
Yes,
real. A
baby,
lot
it
of
makes
the
the heart
things that
grow
she
fonder.
does, a lot of the things that she does about incorporating SEL, social emotional learning, into the
Yes,
curriculum. Those wellness Wednesdays,
yes,
those check-ins with the
yes,
students, seeing how they're doing
yes,
emotionally, seeing where their minds are, seeing where their hearts are, right? All of that stuff,
yes,
part of the regular curriculum that she has in her classroom, you know?
yes,
And
yes.
now I start to incorporate those things in my college classroom, right?
That's
Because
great. How has that made a
those
difference
students
in
are,
your go
oh
ahead.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
Hmm.
Those, we got to keep remembering as educators, our job is not to teach these subjects. We don't teach math. We don't teach English. We're teaching human beings, right?
Ooh, come
The
on.
subject is secondary to the person, right? We
Mm,
the subject is secondary to the person. The person is the most
mm,
important part of that classroom, right? And we need to
mm.
make sure that those students are emotionally, mentally ready to be there to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Mm-hmm.
So I
Can
have
we
a
talk?
question for you, Dr. Brown.
Okay,
yeah,
Um,
go ahead. Go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead.
so in terms, so my research focuses mostly on Black, gay, bisexual men in the family context. But overall, and this is something I've just been thinking about recently. You have generation of ignorance, right, which causes
Mm.
embarrassment in the classroom. So maybe some
Wait a minute.
ideas of how does the parent, how do we include the parent back into the education system? Because you meet
I just want
parents
to
who have
clarify your point.
students
Go ahead,
who
Dr.
can't
Boyd.
read, right? So if you come
Yes.
from a family, a mother and a father who cannot read, and their child cannot read. So the way they interact with teachers and instructors can sometimes be hostile, not because they're the behavior issues, but because they're trying to shift the attention. You see that in students, right? They want to shift attention away from people not knowing that
From
they
the
can
fact.
read, right? But then who's teaching them if their parents can't read and if their parents can't read? So how do we find ways to, okay, why don't you go to college and school with your child?
Hmm.
That's
You know,
good. That's good.
that's interesting. I actually have a student in my English class right now who's an older student whose daughter is
Hmm.
also at the college. You know,
I love
That's
that.
nice.
and
I love
Yeah.
that.
and a lot of it has to do with the fact that the community college is a very different place than that 4 year university. You know, that
Hmm.
community college
Hmm.
is for the community. You
For the
know, and
community. Yes.
it
Yes.
has 100% acceptance rate. You know, if you
Yes.
didn't graduate from high school, no problem. You are a single mom, no problem. We have students who are homeless. We have students who are on SNAP
Love
and
it.
welfare programs.
Yes.
We have students who are, the oldest student I've had ever was like 70, I think, who
Love
just
it.
came back to college, you know? And a
Love
lot of the
it.
community colleges are working like this safety net for that community's economy, you know?
Hmm.
The way you get out of poverty, the way you change your situation, you have to do something that you've never done before to get something that
That's
you never
good.
had
That's
before,
good.
right?
That's
And
good.
so you have these families now are going to school together. You have people who are going back to school to improve their education, their skills, their training. You know, at our college, we have everything from auto mechanic
Hmm.
programs to
Culinary arts.
food truck and culinary arts
Yes.
program. You know,
Yes.
anything that gives the people a chance to do something different so that they can improve their lives,
Right.
improve their families. You know what I'm saying? Now, in the
I
K
love that
12 is
about
different.
community college.
In the K
Hmm.
12
It
is
is.
very, very different because Dr. Boyd, you're right. You have a lot of students who are younger who are coming from families who don't value education. You know,
Hmm.
not a
Hmm.
lot, not a lot, because I'm a big believer that you know, regardless of economic background, you have good people, good families in all neighborhoods who value education. But every once in a while, you do
Yes.
have parents who are struggling with reading and they can't help their
Hmm.
kids, and you do have
Hmm.
parents who are
Hmm.
so busy and stressed and working that they can't continually participate in that school environment.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is this I think is where a lot of our schools need to beef up their environment as a safety net. You know, those teachers, like for example, when I'm teaching, the students know I got chocolate in my office, I got granola bars. You need to come and talk to somebody about what's going on outside of school. I'm here, right?
But see that
You
you're
need
meeting some of those basic felt needs
That's exactly
that
right. That's
oftentimes
exactly right.
these students need. And can we go here because I know we're almost out of time. I can't believe our time is running out so quickly. Because when we're talking about the fighting and everything that's going on in school, what is and I want to take it from a social point, and then let's bring it down, narrow it down to within our levels and community as well. But there is all of this fighting and is real learning going on in our modern day educational system, and are we
Mm.
ignoring a lot of the mental health, and I'm going to go back to Maslow basics needs that are not being addressed? As a result, we are trying to band-aid a bigger issue instead of dealing with the root of the problem. Dr. Boyd, I'm going to
Mm.
talk to you first.
So I do think higher education has this mission to educate the masses, right? And a
Mm-hmm.
part of educating the masses, you also have to build housing. You also have to scholarships. You also have to, as we
Okay.
learn more, right? You have to hire more therapists on campus to deal with the suicide crisis that we're having.
Right.
Um,
That's increasing.
Especially among Black youth and Black emerging
Yes.
adults, adult
Yes.
suicide is on the rise. Um, and
Yes.
so universities have never been invested as much as they have to be now. Um, and so we're playing catch up, right? Like state legislatures
Mm.
are on universities, like, you need to do more, you need to do more. But like, I'm here at Ohio State, as much as I want to spend time with a lot of my students, the university does not give me time, right? I have to do research,
Mm.
I have to publish, I have to write, sit on boards, and do all these
Mm-hmm.
other things,
Well, because it's
and then
driven by
still
funding.
teach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you still have to teach. And the truth is, even though we have to have good evaluations, we will never get tenure being a great teacher and a bad researcher, but you will always get tenure being a great researcher and a bad teacher.
And a bad
So
teacher. Ooh, that's so good.
because you are absolutely, they don't teach us
Right.
as PhD
Definitely
students
right.
how to teach, right? But then how do you deal with people? I mean, as a clinician, I know how to deal with people, but when you got depression,
Mm-hmm.
when you're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with hunger, when you're dealing with all these
Mm-hmm.
competing needs and learning
Mm-hmm.
disabilities in the classroom at the college level,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to teach your subject, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so this is why you have people who don't want to be at middle of the tier universities, because they don't want to
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with it. Those, you know what I mean? But like at a public school, at a public university, I have to deal with it and also do my due diligence because of the systematic failure of the K through 12 education, where I get students who can't write, but they need to pass the
You said
scores. So
the
I'm not
systematic
an English
failure.
professor. I'm not an English professor. So before I can even roll out my subject, I got to go back to the basics and teach how to structure a paragraph, how to do all these things.
Yes.
They just don't know
Subject verb
how to
agreement.
do it. And a lot of, so what you will find is it's common amongst all racial groups, but those who are middle class and health, they can pay for private tutors for their child outside of the university. And those things matter when you have those resources. When you are first gen, poor student of color, more likely your parents can't afford to get you private tutors
Mm-hmm.
to help you find someone to get through college and just, help you pass your math classes and keep that grade point average.
Right.
It's just not a reality. So those are a lot of structural things from K through 12 that professors just sometimes don't have the time to tend to, and it's so unfortunate.
Right.
I love that. And I love that you talked about it from a very macro level, because being your field, definitely with that. And real quick, oh my goodness, I can't believe we got to come back in the near future and do a part 2 of this, because I got part 2s everywhere, y'all. Because we never have enough time to really dig into it. Oh my goodness. But I love that Dr. Boyd talked from a very macro level, and how, and I love you said, if I'm and please forgive me for misquoting, how it is the responsibility of higher education to kind of pour back into the community and educate the community. Did I say that properly?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. I try to keep my listening skills on, but I love what you were saying earlier, Dr. Brown, about how when we're looking at the community college, that their mission is not to turn anyone away, but to meet them right where they're at, to equip them with the necessary skills to not only better their homes, but to better their immediate direct communities. Am I saying
Right.
that
That's
correctly?
exactly right. Right, right. And that's why I love the community college mission. Um, I I went from a 4-year private university to
Mm-hmm.
a community college, and you can see the
Mm-hmm.
big difference in the mission. You know, the mission.
Yes.
You said it. You said it best. It's about meeting those students where they are, right?
Yes.
And um, I think I have the exact opposite situation compared to Dr. Boyd, where
Yes.
there is no
Uh-huh.
researching and publishing. Those pressures don't exist for the faculty at the community college. And
Right.
so
Right.
our goal is to do what we can to help these students graduate, you know. And if that
Yes.
means that I'm going to meet with you after school, I have a class where in that class I have a 17-year-old who took
Mm.
AP English and is still in my English
Mm-hmm.
class, right?
Mm-hmm.
And writing at this
Mm-hmm.
amazing level. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I have a severely disabled student who's coming back to school after several years who never
Yes.
passed
Yes.
12th grade English, right? And
Wow.
so, as the community college instructor, my job is to help both of these students at the same time, right?
Wow.
And that
And I love it. So
capacity, that
go
capacity to
ahead. Go
do
ahead.
so only exists because I don't have to do the research. I don't have to publish.
Right.
My job is to focus on these students in this community, right?
Yes, yes. And I love it. We're talking about the macro level, and now we're doing with the micro level, but how they
Yeah,
both are needed in order
yeah.
to make our society, our communities, our cultures stronger as a whole. We didn't even get to talk about this whole fentanyl and everything that's going on in the school system that's happening on with and y'all, if you have not done the research, turn on your news. Fentanyl is becoming a major crisis, and pre-show, Dr. Boyd and I were talking about how the opioid crisis is increasing, especially when I was hearing how it's increased some 200%. I could be wrong. I heard a number, but it just blew my mind. In Franklin County in Ohio, that just was like mind blowing to me. And is a result of us just being fed up with our educational system, fed up with our lives, fed up with society and everything else. Wow. Okay,
Mm.
guys, we got to have you guys come back in the near
Did
future.
you really
We got to finish
quickly
this. Go ahead. Yeah.
the drug bust in Malibu at Malibu High School?
Oh,
Um,
I used to
they
work
got
at
designer
Malibu High
drugs.
School.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
worked all over the place.
Because they have designer drugs from we talking about Malibu High School. Come on, they got mommy and
Mm,
daddy's drugs that they're sneaking and doing these things.
mm.
But we have to pay attention to that. And parents, please don't be ignorant to what your kids have. The conversation, have weekly, at least once a week. I would try and say at least 3 to 5 times a week. Have family dinner together. Turn off the TV, put down the cell phone, get in their face. Let's have dinner together and have a healthy conversation. How was your day? What was so great about your day? What are your concerns about the day? So that we get to know who we are living with on a daily basis. Tanya, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Let's go here. Dr. Boyd, how can our listeners continue to follow you and learn more about all the great work you're done? And how do we read some of your publications? The great Dr. Boyd.
so you can, I can give you my email address, and Marty, you can always email me for some of my pubs. Um, So
Yes.
if you can access them, but you can follow me on the College of Social Work at Ohio State website, or on Twitter at Donte Boyd 7. Um, that's where I post a lot of my work. Yeah.
Wonderful. Listen, I need to start posting yours and blogging your articles, because I think they'd be great articles to definitely discuss as I'm growing my platform. I'm looking for definitely some educators to show and groom. So definitely any articles, please send it our way, because I want to start sharing those. And Dr. Brown, and same with you, sending me your articles,
Mhm.
but how can we follow you and how do we buy this amazing book, Joker to King?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I love being here. The best way is to go to robertdaylinbrown.com. That name popped up on the screen right there,
Yes.
robertdaylinbrown.com. And that's the starting place. You can find information about buying the book. You can find information about the coaching that I do. You can find information about Joker the King in terms of the blog,
Yes.
articles, all of it. You start right there, robertdaylinbrown.com.
I love it. I love it. Gentlemen, I cannot thank you both enough for joining us. Jeff, man, thank you so much for tuning in as always. My desire is to help educate our community on all things mental health as it affects all walks of life. And we're not having these conversations. My concern, parents, is that there's so much fighting going on that we're being distracted from what we're really going to school for. And that's to grab an education. And however we can be supportive of you. Listen, find some mentors. I think it's so important and imperative. You don't have to be all things to your children, but whatever you can, find that mentor that can help fill in those missing gaps. And it's okay to say, I need help with this. Listen, I'm raising a child all over. Y'all saw my 6.5-year-old. She makes sure she puts a half in there. I am 2 weeks younger than Jesus and have no business with a 6.5-year-old, but I was blessed with one, and so I got her. But we never want you to leave here with not having help. Daryl, let's go to the help screen with that. We want you to have some resources that you can definitely go to support you along your mental health journey. Listen, if you're experiencing any type of crisis, we want you to type crises to 741-741. There's someone always on there that can help you out along your journey. Also, if you're looking for any therapist or anything, Psychology Today, therapy for Black men, as well as therapy for Black girls, good therapy. Mental health, Marcel Consulting, mentalhealthmarty.com, and the new mental health resource 988. Definitely, y'all, we thank you for joining us for this wonderful edition of Mental Health Marty. Listen, we don't want you to continue to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame. But please make sure you join us next week, because next week is our first Tuesday. Who do we have? We got Dr. Margarita Story, Bishop Sean Stewart, and my brother from the same mother, my brother Bobby Sellers. And we always have a good time talking about hot topics and mental health in the Black community. But we don't want you to continue to suffer secretly in silence in the shadow of shame. But we always want you to speak up, speak out, and live so that you might be able to enjoy your life. God bless, and we'll see you next week. Take care.